They said it was just a job. Clean the rooms, wash the dishes, keep your mouth shut, and you'll get your pay on Fridays. That's what Halima was told the day she stepped into the grand compound of the Okoji family. She was only 17, with skin the color of warm earth and eyes too quiet for her age. Her mother had died during childbirth. Her father, he had disappeared into the city years ago. Halima had nothing. No education, no family, no dreams, only survival. The Okoji house wasn't a home, it was a kingdom, and she was a servant in it. Madame Ronki, the lady of the house, treated her like dust on her expensive shoes. Their daughter Lisa was crueler than the Lagos heat. She threw tantrums and insults with the same ease as tossing a pillow. Halima often cried in the servant quarters, curled into herself on a thin mattress that smelled of mold. For 2 years, Halima endured. She swept floors with silent tears, scrubbed toilets while praying under her breath, and smiled when spoken to, even when the words cut like blades. The driver once told her, "You're too soft for this life, Halima. This house will eat you." And it did. The day everything broke was on a Sunday. Lisa accused Halima of stealing her gold necklace, a gift from her boyfriend who lived abroad. Halima hadn't even seen it. She swore on her dead mother's soul, but it meant nothing. Madame Ronke slapped her so hard her ears rang. "Thief! Ungrateful girl, you think we brought you here to rob us?" The guards were called, and Halima was dragged out like garbage. No pay, no clothes, just a torn wrapper and a pair of dusty slippers. She stood outside their gate, shaking in the sun, as rich guests in shiny cars drove past. Nobody looked twice. The street was busy, but for Halima the world had gone silent. She wandered aimlessly for hours, begging God for a reason to keep walking. Her stomach screamed for food, but pride held her back from asking. When the sun finally set, she found herself sitting near a closed shop, hugging her knees, too tired to cry. Then came a black SUV, sleek, tinted, and humming like a beast. It stopped right in front of her. The door opened, and a deep, calm voice asked, "Are you okay?" She looked up and saw him, a man in a navy suit, tall and clean like the city skyline. His eyes were kind but sharp. He looked expensive, too expensive to notice someone like her. Halima didn't speak. She just stared, unsure if he was real, or another dream her hunger had made up. He crouched in front of her and offered a bottle of water. "What's your name?" she whispered. "Halima." He smiled gently. "You look like you've had a rough day, Halima. Let me help you." That's how it began. Not with magic, not with luck, but with kindness. Something she hadn't known in years. She didn't know his name yet. She didn't know he was Kini Obasi, Nigeria's youngest billionaire tech founder. She didn't know that this moment, right here, would change everything, but fate had already opened the door. Halima sat in the back seat of the SUV like someone holding her breath underwater. The cold air from the AC touched her skin, but it couldn't wash away the dirt and shame she carried. Her wrapper was stained, her feet cracked from days without rest, and her soul felt smaller than ever. Keen didn't ask many questions. He only made a few calls, then told the driver to head to a private guest house on the island. The car rode in silence except for the occasional beep of his phone. Halima watched the city lights blur past, her mind struggling to understand what was happening. Why had this man, this rich, important-looking man, stopped for her? People like him didn't even make eye contact with girls like her. When they arrived, a middle-aged woman in a purple uniform opened the door and greeted them. "Good evening, sir. She's a guest," Keen said firmly, nodding toward Halima. "She'll stay in the orchid room. Give her something to eat, and please, help her clean up." The woman's eyes widened a bit, taking in Halima's torn wrapper and dusty slippers, but she nodded respectfully. An hour later, Halima stood in a bathroom that looked like it belonged in a palace. The water was hot, the soap smelled like roses, and the towels were softer than anything she had ever touched. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Her hair was tied in a loose bun, her skin looked clean for the first time in weeks, and she was wearing a simple white robe. But still, she was scared. What did he want from her? What if this was just another game? Rich people like to play. Games. What if he was just waiting for her to let her guard down? Later that night, she sat in the small guest room staring at a plate of rice and fried plantain she couldn't even bring herself to touch. That's when the knock came. "Come in," she whispered. Keen stepped inside, but stayed near the door. "You're safe here, Halima. I know you don't trust me yet, and I don't blame you. But you looked like someone who needed a second chance." Her throat tightened. "Why did you stop for me? You don't even know me." "I've been poor before," he said quietly. "I grew up with nothing. I've slept on floors, begged on the street, and been slapped by people who thought I was beneath them. When I saw you there, I saw myself." She couldn't hold it anymore. Tears rolled down her face, silent and slow. She didn't sob. She didn't wail. Just tears. Pure, tired tears that came from somewhere deep inside. He didn't comfort her. He just let her cry. The next morning she woke up on soft sheets. For the first time in years she had slept without fear. Over breakfast, Keen sat across from her and handed her a small folder. Inside is the address of a woman who runs a home for young women. Safe place, clean. She helps girls find their feet again. Skills training, job placement, even basic education. I've worked with her for a long time. If you want, I can take you there today." Halima stared at the folder like it was a doorway to another world. "Why are you doing this?" He gave a small smile. "Because someone once did the same for me, and I never forgot." Her fingers trembled as she took the folder. She didn't know where this road would lead, but for the first time since being thrown out of the Okoji house like garbage, Halima felt like she had a name again, a story, a future, and that future had just begun to unfold. The car ride to the women's home was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Halima sat in the passenger seat beside Keen, still holding the folder on her lap like it was made of glass. She hadn't said much that morning. Her voice felt locked inside. Her the way it does when you've been unheard for too long. But Keeney didn't push her. He simply drove, humming low to the radio, his fingers relaxed on the wheel. They crossed from the buzzing mainland into a calmer part of Lagos, where the noise dimmed and the air felt lighter. The streets weren't paved with gold, but they were cleaner. Trees lined the sidewalks, and small children in school uniforms laughed as they walked past. When they pulled up to a modest cream-colored compound with a metal gate and a small sign that read, "The Grace Foundation," Halima's hands went cold. This was it. Another new place. Another unknown. Keen walked her up to the door and rang the bell. A young woman in her 30s, with braids pulled into a bun and eyes that seemed to read your heart, opened the gate. She smiled the moment she saw Halima. "You must be Halima," she said, her voice warm like morning sun. "I'm Miss Tola. Keene told me you'd be coming." Halima hesitated, but nodded. Miss Tola stepped aside and let them in. The inside was simple but peaceful. The walls were painted sky blue. The hallways smelled like clean laundry, and soft gospel music played faintly in the background. A few girls sat in a room reading or working on small crafts. They looked ordinary, safe, like they had been broken too and were being rebuilt. Keen stayed only a few minutes. Before leaving, he turned to Halima and said, "You don't owe me anything, Halima. This is your journey now, but if you ever need help again, don't be afraid to reach out." He handed her a small card with a number on it. She clutched it, like it was gold. When the door closed behind him, she felt a wave of panic rise in her chest. Alone again. She nearly bolted. But then Miss Tola gently touched her arm. "Come," she said. "Let me show you your room." Over the next few days, Halima learned to breathe again. The routine was gentle. Morning prayers, cleaning duties, classes in the afternoon. They taught her how to read better, speak more confidently, even use a computer. The other girls, each with stories as painful as hers, welcomed her quietly. There were no screams here, no slaps, no being blamed for things she didn't do. But at night, when the lights were off and the room silent, Halima would lie awake staring at the ceiling. One question stayed with her. Why did Keene help me? It felt too generous, too random. Men didn't just help girls like her, not unless they wanted something. One day she gathered courage and asked Miss Tola, "What's his story? Keen, how, do you know him? Miss Toller smiled. Ah, Keen. That boy came to me 16 years ago with blood on his shirt and nothing in his pocket. He was 14. His stepfather had kicked him out. He was angry, wild, stubborn, but smart. I gave him a bed. He gave me headaches, she chuckled. But he changed. He found peace, purpose, built something bigger than all his pain. Halima felt like her chest was being slowly opened. He hadn't just helped her. He had been her. Once. And now, days later, sitting in a quiet room with books and clean sheets, Halima found herself not just grateful but hopeful. Maybe broken people could fix each other. Maybe kindness didn't always have a price. She picked up the small phone Miss Toller had given her for emergencies and stared at Keen's number on the card. She typed a message, then paused, backspace. Then finally she wrote, "Thank you, I'm trying." She hit send, and for the first time in years she smiled. Weeks turned into months, and Halima began to change, slowly, steadily, like a tree finding its roots after a violent storm. She learned to cook beyond the basics, learned to speak with confidence, and even enrolled in basic tailoring classes. Her fingers, once cracked from scrubbing floors, now stitched fabric with care and pride. Miss Toller often told her, "You're not your past, Halima. Don't wear shame like it's your skin." And though it took time, Halima started to believe it. The girl who had been thrown out like trash was no longer living in fear. She was building something. Still, she never forgot Keen. They didn't speak often, just short messages here and there. He never pried, never made her feel like she owed him anything. That respect made her trust him even more. Then one morning, Miss Toller called her into the office with a gentle smile. "Halima, Keeney is organizing a foundation launch for girls like you, young women who've faced abuse, neglect, or hardship. He wants you to attend." Halima froze. "Me?" "Yes, you," Miss Toller chuckled. "You're part of this story. Now." When the day came, Halima wore a simple white blouse and a skirt she had sewn herself. Her braids were neat, her shoulders back, but her heart thudded like a drum in her chest. The event was held in a sleek building in Victoria Island. Cameras flashed, press moved like waves, and men in suits shook hands like it was oxygen. Halima felt small again, until she saw Keen. He stood on the stage, speaking with the calm power of a man who had fought through hell and come out with grace. "I was once abandoned," he told the crowd. "I know what it feels like to be unwanted, unprotected. But someone gave me a chance, and today I want to give thousands of others the same." Halima watched him with awe. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was real. Every word carried the weight of truth. After the speech, there was a short break, and Keen spotted her across the room. He walked over, a rare softness in his smile. "You came," he said. "I had to," she replied, her voice steadier than she expected. "I wanted to say thank you, properly. You already did." "No," she said, looking him in the eyes. "You didn't just help me. You reminded me I still had worth, that I was more than what happened to me." Kane looked at her for a long second. "That's all I wanted." Then someone called his name, a board member or journalist, and he excused himself with a quick nod. Halima watched him disappear into the crowd. She stood there, her heart full and quiet. But just as she turned to leave, someone stopped her. It was an older woman with silver earrings and sharp eyes. "You're Halima, right?" she asked. "The girl Kane helped." Halima nodded, unsure. The woman smiled. "He talks about you often. Says you remind him of his sister. She died young. Poverty took her before success could reach him." Halima felt a lump form in her throat. She had never known that part of his story. That night, back in her shared room at the foundation home, Halima sat at the small desk by the window and opened her notebook. She began to write about the Okogie house, about sleeping on floors, about kindness, about second chances. And somewhere in between the ink and the silence, she wrote a line that made her tears fall. "He saved me without asking to own me." She didn't know what the future held, but she knew this. She would never be a maid again, not in anyone's house, not in anyone's story. She would be her own woman. The next chapter of Halima's life began not with fanfare, but with fabric. Miss Toller had noticed how quickly Halima picked up tailoring, how precise her hands were, how patient she became with cloth and thread in a way she never was with people. So she encouraged her, pushed her gently toward something bigger. "We're enrolling you in a 6-month advanced tailoring program," she said one morning. "Real training, real certification, and it's fully funded by Keen's Foundation." Halima blinked. "He's still helping me?" Miss Toller smiled. "He doesn't see it as helping, he sees it as investment." The school was in Yaba, surrounded by busy streets and sharp Lagos noise, but inside the walls of the tailoring academy, Halima felt focused, alive. The machines hummed like music. The chalk on the measuring tables told quiet stories, and she, for once, wasn't the poorest in the room. Her work stood out fast. While others rushed, she took her time. And soon, clients who came in for fittings started asking, "Who made this blouse? Who stitched this skirt?" Each time the answer was the same: Halima. By the 5th month, the instructor called her aside. "You're ready," she said. "You have what most people spend years chasing: precision, discipline, and story. Your work tells a story." Halima left the academy with a certificate in one hand and a folded business plan in the other, something she had stayed up many nights drafting. Her dream was simple but bold: a fashion line named Nama's Touch, in memory of her mother, the one woman who had died too soon to ever see her become more than a maid. Kine called her a week later. "I heard you graduated top of your class," he said. "Congratulations." "Thank you," she replied, almost shy. "It's because you gave me the start." He paused. "You know, Halima, I've been thinking. I'm launching a new mentorship program, young female entrepreneurs. I want you to be part of it." Halima nearly dropped her phone. "I, me?" "Yes, you," he laughed. "There's funding, office space, legal help. I'll pair you with someone from my team to guide you through setting up properly." Tears welled up in her eyes again, but she blinked them back. "I don't know how to thank you. You already are every time you keep going. The mentorship program changed everything." Suddenly, Halima was no longer just a girl with skills. She was a businesswoman in training. She learned branding, budgeting, customer service, and soon she had her own small shop. Nothing fancy, just a single room in Surulere with 2 sewing machines and a printed banner outside that read, "Nama's Touch, Tailoring with Heart." Customers came, first in trickles, then steady streams. Women from the neighborhood brought fabric and left with smiles. A bride brought a sketch and cried when Halima made her dream dress from it. A local boutique signed her to design a small line for working-class women. And one evening, as the sun set behind the rusted rooftops of the city, Halima stood outside her shop and watched the sign flutter in the breeze. For a long time she said nothing. Then she whispered to herself, "From housemaid to designer." She wasn't rich yet. She wasn't famous, but she had built something with her bare hands, something no one could throw her out of. She pulled out her phone and texted Keen. "I opened my shop today. You were right, I didn't need to stay broken." He replied minutes later, "Proud of you, this is just the beginning." And Halima believed him. Business was growing. Not fast like a fire, but steady like rain soaking deep into dry ground. Halima's shop, Nama's Touch, became more than just a tailoring room. It became a place of dignity. Women came not only for clothes, but for the feeling of being seen. Halima offered them chai when they waited, asked about their families, remembered their names. People noticed. Within a year, she had hired 2 apprentices, girls from the foundation where she had once stayed. Amina and Peace, both quiet and strong like Halima used to be. She trained them patiently the way Miss Toller had nurtured her. With every stitch, Halima was passing on more than skill. She was passing on survival, grace, and second chances. But not all growth comes without struggle. One afternoon, Madame Ronque walked into her shop. Halima froze when she looked up and saw her. The woman hadn't changed much, still well-dressed, still holding her bag like she owned every room. But her face had thinned, and her eyes darted around like she wasn't used to being ignored. They stared at each other for a long moment. "You," Madame Ronque said quietly. Halima nodded once. "Yes, me." I didn't expect to see you like this." Halima smiled, not cruelly, just calmly. "Neither did I." Ronka shifted uncomfortably. "My daughter's getting married. I need a dressmaker." There it was, the same pride, the same entitlement. But Halima didn't flinch, not anymore. "I can refer you to a few shops in Ikoyi," Halima said coolly. "They cater to people like you." Ronki's eyes narrowed. "So you won't help me?" "I did help you, madam, for 2 years in silence, while your daughter called me names, while you treated me like dirt." She folded a piece of fabric and looked up. "This shop is built on what I survived. I owe that girl nothing." Ronke stared. Her mouth parted in slight disbelief. Maybe she came to gloat. Maybe she thought Halima would fall to her knees in joy just to be acknowledged again. But none of that happened. She turned and walked out, and Halima never saw her again. That night, Halima sat on the floor of her small apartment above the shop and stared out the window. She wasn't angry. She didn't even feel proud. What she felt was peace. She had faced her past, and it no longer controlled her. Later, her phone rang. It was Kine. "I heard what happened," he said. "She really showed up," Halima chuckled. "Lagos is small, but yes." "And how do you feel?" "Like I finally closed a door I didn't know was still open." He was silent for a moment, then said, "There's something else. I'm starting a women's empowerment center in Abuja. I want a creative director, someone who knows pain, resilience, and beauty, someone like you." Her breath caught. "Me?" "Yes, the position comes with housing, salary, travel. You'll train young girls, develop design programs, speak to schools. Think about it." She didn't answer right away. Later that night, while sipping tea and listening to the hum of the city, she looked at a photo she'd framed. It was from the foundation graduation. Her, Miss Tola, Amina, Peace, and even Kine standing behind them like an anchor. She whispered to herself, "Abuja." It sounded like a new beginning. Maybe it was time. Halima packed her life into 2 small suitcases. She left behind the shop, but not the dream. Namaz's touch would continue. Amina and Peace would run it now, under her guidance from afar. The morning she handed them the shop keys, all 3, girls cried and laughed like sisters on the edge of something bigger than themselves. "You're not just tailors anymore," Halima told them. "You're leaders now." The journey to Abuja felt different from her first trip to Lagos years ago. Back then, she had traveled with nothing but fear in her bones. This time, she carried purpose. Keen had arranged everything: her flight, her new apartment, even a quiet welcome team at the airport. No cameras, no fuss, just quiet respect. The Women's Empowerment Center sat near JB Lake, a wide, modern building with glass walls and bold murals painted by local artists. Inside were classrooms, design studios, and a stage for public talks. It was vibrant, alive, and full of girls who looked like younger versions of Halima. Some scared, some angry, some just tired, but all of them willing to try. As creative director, Halima's role was to build them up. Teach sewing, yes, but more than that. Teach presence, self-worth, dignity. The first day she addressed the group, her hands trembled slightly. She looked out at over 50 young women all watching her. "I was thrown out of a house with nothing," she began. "No clothes, no food, no voice. I worked as a maid, invisible and abused. But someone saw me, and now I see you." The room went silent. Not heavy silence, listening silence. Halima had learned the power of telling the truth. It pulled others forward. It gave them permission to believe again. Weeks passed, then months. The center flourished. Girls started small businesses. Some returned to school. A few found jobs in local shops. Halima became a name in the community, not because of wealth, but because of what she gave: her time, her honesty, her fire. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. Keen came to visit. They sat on a bench near the lake, the city glowing in the distance. He wore jeans and a plain shirt, nothing flashy. Halima had just wrapped up a workshop, her hair tied back, fingers still stained with fabric chalk. "You've done well," he said softly. "I learned from the best," she replied, smiling. He was quiet for a moment, then looked at her with an expression she hadn't seen before. It wasn't businesslike, it wasn't mentorship, it was something else. "I didn't just come to see the center," he admitted. "I came to see you." Her heart skipped. "I've watched you become a leader, Halima. You've taken everything ugly that happened to you and turned it into strength. She cut him off, gently. "Kine, I know," he said, nodding. "You don't owe me anything, and I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know how deeply I respect you." The words settled in her chest like warmth. No pressure, no control. Just truth. They sat in silence watching the water. The moon danced on the lake's surface, and for once Halima didn't feel like she was waiting for her life to begin. She was already living it. She reached out and held his hand, not out of romance, but out of shared survival. "Whatever the next chapter is," she whispered, "I'm ready." And for the first time in her life, she truly meant it. 1 year later, the Abuja Center had become a symbol of transformation. Girls came from as far as Kaduna and Jos, some brought by NGOs, others simply by word of mouth. The waiting list was long, but Halima never turned anyone away without a conversation. If she couldn't teach them, she would find someone who could. Her name now carried weight, but it was not fame she held, it was trust. In that time, Naama's touch had grown, too. Amina and Peace expanded the shop into 2 branches, one in Surulere and one near Yaba Market. They sent photos often, new dresses, a small billboard, even a staff retreat they managed on their own. Halima beamed with pride every time she saw their updates. Her dream didn't die when she moved, it multiplied. But in the quiet hours of evening, after workshops and meetings, she often found her thoughts drifting to Cain. They kept in touch, of course. Texts, calls, the occasional lunch when he flew into Abuja. But there was a quiet shift now, an unspoken understanding that something deeper existed between them. One evening he called. "I'm hosting a gala," he said, "for the Foundation's 5th anniversary. I want you to speak, tell your story." Halima hesitated. "Me? A room full of governors and CEOs?" "Yes," he said gently. "They need to hear you." The event was held in a glass ballroom in Lagos, the same city that had once thrown Halima to the streets. She wore a golden dress Amina had stitched just for her. It was soft and flowing, like the woman she had become, strong, graceful, untamed. When her name was called, Halima walked up to the stage. Spotlights hit her. Cameras flashed, but she didn't flinch. She looked out at the crowd, took a breath, and began, "I was once the girl outside the gate, the one nobody looked at. I cleaned toilets in houses where people didn't even know my name. I was thrown out without a word, left on the street like I had no use. But someone helped me, not with pity but with belief, and that belief lit a fire in me." She paused, her voice steady, her heart full. "Today, I run an empowerment center for girls who are broken like me, and I'm here to tell you, broken girls don't stay broken. They rise, they build, they lead." The hall erupted in applause. Later that night, as the gala wound down, Kine found her on the terrace. "You were magnificent," he said softly. Halima turned to him, eyes shining. "You made this possible." "No," he replied. "You did." They stood there for a long time, the music inside fading, the stars above them bright and silent. Then Cain reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Halima froze. He didn't open it. Not yet. "I'm not asking for your hand. Tonight," he said, "but someday I will, not because I saved you, but because I admire the woman you've become. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here." Halima stared at him, her chest tight with emotion. Her past flashed through her, barefoot on the street, crying in servant quarters, folding fabric in a dark room. And now, this. She didn't answer right away. She just reached out and closed the box gently in his hand. "One day," she said, her smile soft and real. "Maybe. But tonight, I just want to dance." And they did. In a city that had once buried her, Halima now stood tall, in heels, in gold, in glory, not as a maid, not as a victim, but as a woman who turned every pain into power.